Cheers! Ways to get into Blackie. Welcome to 5th in series for how to get into Blackie group of institutions, that means the top IIMs. Today, we are going to talk about IIM Kozhikode. And yes, it is not Kozhikode, although it is written that way in English. Let's take a look at the courses offered, the eligibility and various other details which can help you figure out if you are eligible for that, and if you are, how can you get into it.
To book a free one-on-one MBA counseling online or at any IMS center, check out the link in the description box or the pinned comment below.
We will start with the flagship thing, which is common for every single IIM. Yes, some form of eligibility of course changes. In this case, when we talk about PGP-MBA program, which is their flagship MBA program, the most important thing is that they require your 10th and 12th class percentage, but they do not require your graduation percentage, which means the graduation sins are forgiven. Other than that, there is a significant portion of gender diversity which they give some weightage to, which is 10%. And that is the reason that IIM Kozhikode is basically famous for having a very balanced sort of cohort. Somewhere in the range of 30 to 35 and sometimes even more % of women are there in every single PGP MBA batch. Work experience is quite low at 5%, so even if you don't have work experience, that's all right. And from the set of 100 marks, only 5 marks are allocated to work experience, and within that also, a person who has a work experience of 36 months, you get the highest mark, which means low experience will fetch you low marks and higher than 36 will also fetch you low marks. So this is one little sweet spot, and that is why this is quite preferred by people who are more freshers as such. Other than that, when we talk about the return on investment, there is no problem in that. Let's talk about the flow. Very simple. You will apply, you will take the test, which will be CAT if you are an Indian aspirant, and then what will happen that they will ask you to fill a form which is called a stage 1 form. And stage 1 form is not first shortlist. It is just form, that's all. When you fill the stage 1 form, then you get the shortlist, then you attend the PI, and then you get the final list. The profile that is required here should be quite balanced, quite holistic, and there is a component here which is called resume score. I'll not go into the detail of resume score, but there are certain components that should be part of your resume. And for that, you have to have some marks. You will get some marks, and that percentage is around 10%. And this resume score is taken into account only in the final list, which means after your PI is done. So if you are interested in that, I would recommend that you go and check what could be the components of that resume for which you are going to get the resume score. And finally, when we talk about the exam, for Indians, it is CAT. You will apply that when CAT forms are going to be out, which is August, September. And GMAT, GRE and CAT, all three can be used for international applicants. GMAT 3 years worth of score. So if you have taken GMAT in last 3 years, that's all right. For GRE again 3 years. For CAT 1 year. Percentile and cutoff is just given, which is just indicative of the type of candidate that they are looking forward to, the good candidates. And there are 50 seats for it, and these are supernumerary seats, which means over and above the seats that are there for CAT aspirants or Indian aspirants. Let's talk about another interesting thing. Now, I call this again, the almost flagship way. IIM Kozhikode provides you 3 courses which can be called as the flagship courses. First is the PGP MBA, and second is the PGP MBA Finance. Very interesting course, really high cutoff, and specifically for people who are somebody within the finance domain and want to be somebody within the finance domain. And that's why, for the leadership roles in finance. Now, basics are more or less the same, but there are a couple of things which are changing. One, again, graduation is not required here, which is same as PGP MBA. But then, when you talk about CAT exam or GMAT, GRE, whatever exam you want to take, they are going to give a lot of weightage, lot of importance on the QA and data interpretation portion of it, which is 20% each, which means 40% of that 100% which is going to be used to make a composite score, which will help you get the shortlist. 40% is just QA plus DI score of the exam that you take. Then there is another thing called finance suitability score. Very wonderful thing. If you have done CA, if you have done CFA, and then it depends on what level of CA or CFA you have done, or if you have done all of these things together, then on the basis of that, you get a finance suitability score. And I think 8 is the maximum limit. Basically, it means that you have done all the required certifications in finance and you get the 8 score. And this is quite important because it is sort of a deciding factor, finance suitability score. And that's why it is very difficult for people who do not have a finance background in any form to get into the shortlist of it. People do get into the shortlist of it because you might have really good QA and DI score, you might have really good 10th and 12th percentage. But I'm just saying that if you have this kind of thing, it gives better outcome. When I talk about the flow is exactly the same. So I'm not going to discuss that thing. Then we talk about profile, and again, profile has to be holistic. Again, there is something called as resume score. And in this resume score, they will again check your finance suitability. So if that is happening, then it's great. And finally, the exam, same thing. Here also, only supernumerary seats are there, which are 50 for international applicants. GMAT, GRE and CAT will be the exams. For Indian applicants, it is normal CAT exam. So if you think that you are interested in finance, it is a good idea to fill both the programs, both PGP MBA and PGP MBA Finance for Kozhikode. Wonderful course. The cutoffs will go in the range of 98, 99, 97, 96, depending upon what your suitability score of finance is. But yeah, it is quite competitive that way. Let's take a look at the third one, which is another flagship way, and this is called PGP MBA LSM. LSM means Liberal Studies. Okay. So similar to MBA course, but what they have given on the website is that we create a kind of learning ecosystem that fosters diversity of thought, emotional, cultural and creative intelligence, which is part of that thought diversity. So basically, if you want to work in a manner, or in a sector which requires you to be very creative, which requires you to deal with diverse people, or you have to, be part of various cultures in one go and things like that, this kind of course is very interesting. Again, the basics will exactly be the same. And here, the change is that when we talk about finance, then more weightage is on the number-based sections of CAT. Here, when we talk about liberal studies and management, the focus is on communication section of CAT, which is checked through VARC. So if you have a high VARC score, but if you do not have a very high QA and DI score, there is a good chance that you might get a call from here. 40% weightage is given to VARC. 20% each for 10th and 12th. So basically, if you have done well in 10th class, 12th class and CAT VARC, 80% of portion is sorted. Then there is again gender and academic diversity and moderate work experience, which is taken into account, but the percentage for again moderate work experience is okayish. Academic and gender diversity definitely will talk about the rest 10 to 5%. So more or less everything is decided on your academics in 10th and 12th and your score in VARC section. The flow again is going to be the same. You apply, you take test, then the shortlist happens and then PI finalist. Finally, the profile that they look forward is again holistic, but if you have high communicative proficiency, if you can communicate well in your PI, communication doesn't mean fluency. It means substance with fluency. And if you have that, it is going to do really good for you when we talk about the final conversion, because PI again will have a significant portion of weightage. And finally, the exams that you are going to take will be CAT, GMAT and GRE for Indians. So here you are not just restricted to CAT. You can take either of CAT, GMAT or GRE. Same thing is for international. But when we talk about Indians, it is just the current year. For GMAT and GRE, we will have to check specifically because the details were not as clear at that time when we made this PPT. But when we talk about international candidates, GMAT 3 years, GRE 3 years. Here also for international candidates, there are supernumerary seats, which means over and above the seats which are already there, and these are 15 number. So wonderful course. And again, if you want to get into IIM Kozhikode, it is a good idea to rather fill all these 3 courses. And then let's go to the next part. This is a 1-year program, 1-year PGP-BL, which means business leadership. Executive program basically. If it is an executive program, so you already know that it is not meant for freshers. It is meant for working professionals who want to eventually become leader. And the focus of the course here is extensively on data analytics and communication. Although it's not like that they have specifically mentioned it here that it is business leadership in analytics or data, but their course definitely has a big focus on these two things. And of course that is needed when you want to grow as a leader and you are already working somewhere. Let's take a look at the basics of this one. No 10th and 12th is required, which is a common feature across all the executive programs. You must have minimum of 4 years of work experience. Very important. If you don't have it, you can't apply. Then you need to submit a statement of purpose. You need to submit a resume essay. Don't worry about that, resume essay, but it is something. Basically, it is sort of a document in which you talk about what have you done in life and how you are suitable for this. Now, you might want to ask me then what is the difference between resume essay and SOP? Let's talk about that on case-to-case basis. If you are interested in that, you can just ping us on that chat or the comments, and then we would be happy to help you out. Like every executive program, it also gives you an opportunity to apply in many rounds. Here there are 3 rounds. That happens in June, July and September. If I talk about the flow, again, you apply, you take an aptitude test followed by shortlist, PI and the final list. The profile, mostly non-academic, but it should be holistic. If you have done professional course, if you have demonstrated some form of diversity of work, if you have demonstrated some form of leadership, if you have demonstrated some form of social sensitivity in terms of the projects that you have done and so on, it really gives you an edge over others. The exams, CAT, GMAT, GRE, all 3 are okay, and you must have taken these exams within 3 years, in the last 3 years of that time when you are applying, and that will be all. And finally, let's talk about this. The another executive way. This is called ePGP for working professionals. Again, for experienced people. Now, what's the difference here? 3 years of work experience is mandatory as compared to the previous one in which 4 years of work experience was required. In this case, they have given special quota, special seats. Generally, the people who have worked in some form of government sector or some form of projects which are related to community, they do prefer this program a lot. But that is not only for them. So if you have done something in national or international sports, let's say you are a sports person, or you have managed them nationally or internationally, or you are an entrepreneur, or you are a leader, or you have done something in community service, or you are into arts or literature at some really good level, then some special quota is allocated to it. Some 10 to 15% of the seats or 10 to 15% of the marks will definitely go to you. So that's quite interesting. The second thing is flow is no different. You take the exam, you fill the application followed by exam, then your shortlist, then your PI and then your final list. In case of profile, I'm sure that now you are already aware of this thing that your profile should be quite strong, and that is exactly what I was talking about. There are 10 dedicated seats for these categories that I discussed. National, international, sports, entrepreneur, leadership. So if you are one of these, then your competition sort of becomes very narrow, and there is good chance for you to convert that as well. Exam, there are 2 exams. One is EMAT, which is Executive Management Aptitude Test taken by IIM Kozhikode. And if you don't want to take it, then you have GMAT, CAT or GRE valid for 3 years. Let's talk about the 6th way of getting into IIM Kozhikode, which is the part-time way. Again, for working professionals, and because it is a part-time program, it is going to take some more time. It does not happen at the Kozhikode campus, it happens at the Kochi campus. Other than the fact that work experience is mandatory and you have to submit an SOP and it is happening at Kochi campus, not much details are currently given on the portal. But that's all right, because this is not a program that a lot of people will be focusing on. The people who want to currently upgrade their education skills and they have some work experience and they can't leave their jobs, they would be interested in that. So you will just have to mail them and they will give you the details of it. As and when a dedicated course comes up at any point in time in the year, then of course they are going to populate the details on the website. The flow is same, so there is no discussion on that. Profile again has to be majorly work experience oriented, whatever you have done. Academic is also considered, but majorly work experience. The exam again, these are the two. One is EMAT, or either you can take GMAT, CAT or GRE. On the website it was not mentioned for how many years this score is valid, but I am expecting that like the previous one, this also should be valid for 3 years. But more details are awaited, and if you are interested, let me know. I'll be happy to query the institution for you, or you can do that on your own. And then finally, the UG program. This is for people who are graduating 12th class. It's a 4-year UG program, wonderful program. This is known as BMS, Bachelor in Management Studies. Basics are that you must have good 10th and 12th class score, and it gives you the opportunity to do minor in various things. What a wonderful program it is. You are doing BMS, but then you can do a minor in public policy management, artificial intelligence, machine learning, psychology, finance, big data, research, and so on. And there is foreign exchange opportunity also available in it. So you will spend some time outside of India. So wonderful. If you are a 12th class graduate, definitely something worth considering. The flow is again simple. They will definitely take a PI. It's not just that the exam is going to happen and then you will get straight into it. And if PI is going to happen, they will evaluate you on a balanced profile. The exam is IIM Kozhikode BMS aptitude test. There are 2 sections only. One is verbal and the other one is quant that you will have to prepare for. So if you are a UG aspirant, feel free to connect with us. So get ready for your CAT or UG preparation. If you have any question, feel free to reach out to us, because IIMs are not something which are not reachable. Of course they are. All the best.